Hi, today I wanted to speak about a thing that I see online very often on all Facebook pages, YouTube pages, and I just wanted to say a couple of things that may, I don't want to say clarify the topic, but it may add some kind of knowledge or a specific kind of knowledge to the whole understanding of this very complicated thing that we call Taijiquan. So in Taijiquan, there are different and many elements that need to be combined in order to be a proper Taijiquan practitioner and proper Taijiquan form. And for form, I mean the way to be with Taijiquan. Somebody call it principles, some other people call it in other ways, songs or rhymes or writings or classicals or the classics. There are many different ways to say the same thing. One thing that for sure is one of the most discussed by many practitioners of Kung Fu in general is the concept of central equilibrium, also called as ZhongDing. Now, ZhongDing, it's a word that means everything and nothing at the same time. It really depends where you put this word, and it takes the meaning of a different thing as good as you put it in different places. Okay, let's put a case that I do a specific style that is called, I don't know, Mantis Northern style, or Snake 7 stars style from this and that, okay? And then I tell to my students that in the classics, in the writings of my masters, of my ancestors, there is a thing called ZhongDing, or central equilibrium, or central line of equilibrium, or the more I stay straight, the more I'm steady, or whatever, but I call it ZhongDing. So the way I explain it is one thing, the way I show it is the most important thing. Why I say that? Because just say ZhongDing is just a word. Same as for Qi, okay? Qi, for example, if I put it in a context of medical practice, means one thing. If I put it in the context of martial art, it means another thing. It's the same character, the same thing, Qi, okay? It's not another character, it's still Qi, but it means two completely different things. Same as ZhongDing. It depends on how I use it, how I develop the particular test that that kind of ZhongDing have in that specific practice. That could be snake, could be Mei Hua Chuan, could be Taijiquan, could be Xingyi Chuan, could be anything, but this thing is not the same for all the styles. Why? Because the name is the same, the concept, the meaning is also the same, but the way I practice it, the way I develop, it could be substantially different from style to style, from house to house, from family to family, and lastly, from tradition to a tradition, okay? So let's put the case, we talk about a style that is very common in many practices, Bei He Chuan, so the style of the white crane from Fujian province. Maybe you never heard of it, but you have for sure practices if you're watching this video, because everything that is concerned karate, Wing Chun, many other styles from South, actually they all come from this big, enormous, complicated style called Bei He Chuan. The Bei He Chuan, even in the most traditional form, have already 5 or 6 different branches. The crane, the whip, there are so many cranes, okay? So everyone does a different thing, but they all come from the same root and they all have similar principles. Of course, even there are some who prefer to develop a certain kind of practice and others who develop another kind of practice. They stay in the same area, they stay in the same concept, but they develop different kind of elements, because the master at a certain point decided that that was a way to take and not another one, okay? But they stay with the same kind of background. So think to people who go to the same university, but then after the university and after they got their bachelor degrees, they decide to specialize a kind of practice instead of another. then what happened? When they meet for a big dinner all together, they will still share the same kind of knowledge and the same kind of roots that their university gave them. Okay, so it's the same concept. So you won't be actually move away much from your studies if those are the only studies you have done. Okay, it's normal. So they also use the practice of ZhongDing to say this word, ZhongDing. But that's a very, very different concept. It's a very different ZhongDing than Taijiquan ZhongDing, for example. ZhongDing is often translated as central equilibrium, but actually, if we go into the meaning of the word Zhong, which is the same as Zhongguo, which is China, it doesn't mean only central people or people from Middle Earth or the land in the middle or people in the middle of the land, but means also the rightful people and the right people, the correct people or the most right people. So if something is right, as a way of saying straight as an arrow, is straight, it's never curve, it never make a zigzag. Okay, if something is right, it's usually straight. That's just a way of saying in any language that I know. So it's the same principle. ZhongDing doesn't actually mean necessarily you need to be straight, and in order to do that, you will have a certain attitude that will give you more equilibrium. It doesn't mean only that. It's not necessarily a physical thing to follow. It doesn't mean that you have to be always straight in your posture, because we are speaking of martial arts, so it's a practical thing. It doesn't actually mean that you have to be with your back straight as an arrow, straight as a plank, like in this way, to do anything, otherwise it's not correct because you are not following the principles. It doesn't mean only that. I know styles that actually bend in ways that I have never seen before. And Taiji, when I got into the practice of Taiji at a deeper level, actually the back is used at 360 degrees. It's very similar to many Shaolin practices, more than all the styles that are related to Bei He Chuan. So when I went back to Bei He Chuan and to the masters of Bei He Chuan, to the people who practice it for many, many decades, yes, they have their own concept of ZhongDing. It is to be really straight and to use shoulders, hips, breathing techniques in a certain way that will develop certain kind of abilities. It's true that for them, ZhongDing is actually being straight. Many, many masters say that is about being with the back and the spine, all the vertebrae completely straight as much as possible during all of the movements that you can do. You can see practices of Wing Chun or Bei He Chuan or Pak Mei, all the styles that are directly have their roots directly to Bei He Chuan. They are all pretty straight. The posture is actually low and set in a way where my line, my central line, is free to roll in this way. The hands, all the arms are soft in a particular fashion, okay, with a particular kind of test, okay. I will say are relaxed, but then people from Taiji will understand some kind of relaxation, people from Yichuan will understand another kind of relaxation, people from Paguajuan will understand another kind of relaxation. Relaxation is just a word that means everything, okay? Everyone has his own way of relaxing. I can be relaxed in 10 different ways, okay? So, Bei He Chuan, Wing Chun, and many other practice related, they have their own ZhongDing in that way, okay? Now, I don't feel to mimicking this because I'm not doing that. It's not my style. But I think if you saw a proper Taijiquan form and a proper Bei He Chuan form, the two things are completely not related at all, especially in terms of central equilibrium. The central equilibrium, and here we go to speak about the actual Taijiquan ZhongDing, it's a less physical way to understand central equilibrium. So in Taijiquan, you have this area that will be filled with qi, with breathing, that will move a certain kind of energy. Once you have what I usually refer to the bowling ball, okay? When you have your bowling ball inside your belly, you won't be able to be moved away much, because if you have a big ball that is really heavy, when you touch it, you just slip away. You can touch it inside, you can push it because it's too heavy, you can pull it because it's too heavy, and more than heavy, it just rotates its axis constantly. So the more you have it, you have nothing to grab, so you just flip away, moving your own center, okay? If you try to move something that is heavier than you and rotate, what is the outcome? That you will eventually move your own center and move away, or even fall, okay? The more you go stronger, the more you fall, okay? These are the true concepts of Taijiquan. And ZhongDing in Taijiquan, it doesn't mean that you have to be as straight and static as a pole or a tree. No, not at all. Not at all. There are positions in Taijiquan where you have to be twist or bending over or going forward and backward in this way, okay? So if I twist my back in this way, how I can maintain my ZhongDing if for me my ZhongDing is just staying straight? I can't. So wherever you see someone who is like this, who's like this, who's like this, it will be incorrect, but it's not true in Taijiquan. So it could be incorrect in the style that you are following, but it's not incorrect in Taijiquan. Because in Taijiquan, the weight and all of your understanding of your body, for lack of better word, is inside this area. Is everything concerning this area and nothing else, okay? So you have a big bowling ball that is indestructible and can go in any kind of direction you want. The rest is just a consequence of this, okay? It's the only style in China, of all Chinese styles, traditional styles that I saw in my life, that focus so entirely at 100% on few important concepts that are usually pretty complicated to achieve. It requires many years of practice, and not that everybody can, because you need also to understand, and then you have to practice in order to develop this kind of practice, this kind of body qualities. But this is Taijiquan. If you don't do this, you are not doing Taijiquan, you're doing something else. You are doing your own practice, or, which appears to be 80% of the time, you're just practicing Taijiquan movements with the body qualities of another style. So, coming back at universities, the example, if I've studied medicine, okay, I've studied medicine at university. Then at the end of the university, I say, okay, I want to do cooking, because in life I want a diverse life. So you will have an approach to cooking that is different from someone who has studied cooking. You will have the approach of a doctor, which it doesn't mean that you won't be a good cook. Doesn't mean. Maybe you are a better cook than many others, but your approach will be very different. Your way of procedure will be very different, unless you forget completely what you have done before and you restart a new segment of your life with new rules about cooking, about everything that concerns the kitchen, and you restart completely. At the point you start from ground zero, you need to completely erase your mindsets, your previous mindsets, and you restart again. Of course, a little bit of that will always be present and maybe will be even useful at the end of the goal, but is not as a cook should be. Okay? A cook should be a cook, not a doctor. So that's the principle. You will get something, but it will never be 100% because of your previous experiences. Okay? So, long story short, when you think about ZhongDing, don't think of ZhongDing necessarily to be as straight as an arrow. The fact that you have to be aligned and your bones must be in a certain place at a certain time with certain coordination, relaxing your big muscles, not to be tense. These are very, very general rules. These are not the secrets of internal martial art. To be straight, to have the body that works as one, to be coordinated. These are, in any style, you can find these are the basics of the basics, okay? These are what the Chinese learned during the Zhibegun. Zhibegun is a way to say the basics, okay? These are the basics. And you learn it through series of movements, a series of static positions. Every style has its own way of teaching, but these are the basics, are not the actual principles, okay? If you go to the decency app, any school in China, any proper school in China, not at the parks, not something for the Laowais, you know, something for, or a university, but if you go to a proper master, everyone have the basics already done. You will probably the only one who have stiff shoulders, stiff arms, cannot do this, or cannot bend too much, and the back you have maybe a little bit of kyphosis. You will be probably the only one. The Chinese are set really, really good. And then from there are the people who specialize the style and they go forward, then some other people who stay at that level and continue. But when I arrived to China, I was surprised that my previous almost 15 years of intense practice was practically nothing, because what I thought was the secret of the secret was actually the base of the base. Everybody from the decency up, I repeat, were already done. Shoulders perfect, the posture was perfect, everything. The neck, the hand positions, the head positions, everything. Okay, on the structural physical level was perfect, perfect. So I thought it was good. Actually, I was the very, very base at the very beginning. Then from there is breathing techniques. How do you release the power without move? How you don't know where to shift your weight? You don't have to shift your weight. And these are just, you know, topics for another video. But what I wanted to say is this. ZhongDing not necessarily is being straight as an arrow, okay? It depends. Thank you for watching.